Okay, is my screen visible?
Yes.
I think your screen is also shared, someone, I think. You're talking on mute. Okay. Okay, so is my screen visible to everyone?
Yes, it's good for me.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's good. We can hear you. We can see your screen.
Sure. Yeah. Right. So hello everyone. So this is my first Drupal meetup in Canada itself. I recently moved to Canada. I'm basically from India, and okay. So today we'll talk about some parts of Next.js and Storybook with Drupal. Yeah. So right now it's evening here, so I just added a slide. Good evening, everyone. So yeah, basically about me. So I am working as a Drupal freelancer over here in Edmonton region, and I have worked in a couple of Drupal agencies and Drupal forms, including Acquia, Digital Polygon, and region as well. So that's my basic introduction from my side. So this is some of the fun facts which I do apart from like doing the coding part, which is like producing music, doing some UX UI research, and I like writing as well. So last I published a book called Livelihood of Gaming. It's available on Amazon. So if you guys want to take a look, I can. Yeah. Okay. So today we have a couple of topics. So first is Next.js, like why Next.js, and a couple of concepts which you all might be familiar with, which is CSR, SSR, and SSG. So, and then we'll be talking about various ways that we can use to integrate Next.js with Drupal. And then I'll talk a little bit about Storybook and the flow of Storybook using it in Drupal and Next.js. And then I'll show a quick demo of how we can integrate Storybook with Next.js. Yeah, and that would be using Drupal as well. So, okay. So first, I wanted to start with a fun fact. Like Next.js is used with around 17.5% worldwide, and many developers still is likely to use Next.js when they compare with other frameworks. So I'll just show a graph which shows which is the topmost used framework. So right now is Node.js, and at the fourth it comes Next.js. And if you see Drupal, it's very least, but the Next.js is at fourth. But still, many people are using Next.js. So there's a common question: why is Next.js used over Node.js and React? Like, why do people prefer Next.js? Right? Even though Next.js is created on top of Node.js, it has Node.js and React.js in itself, but people still prefer Next.js. So the answer lies in the pre-rendering methods which it has. So this is basically four concepts. So first is server-side generation. So what happens here is like on every request during the build time, the pages are generated dynamically. So server-side generation is something we can imagine with Drupal. We are using Twig in Drupal. So whatever we print or whatever we do, it would be if we refresh or if we use a Twig debug and if we refresh the page, it would automatically render rather than any loading time. So we can imagine it like that way. And SSR is something like the page is first generated on the server side and then at the runtime, and then whenever a request goes, it goes to server, and then server generates and give it back to the client sites, which is browser. CSR is basically most commonly used in React.js. So the data is sent from client from browser to the server directly, and they don't want a any pre-render the page. So CSR, if you imagine like if you don't want SEO in your page, then CSR is useful, especially when you want a single page application. So CSR is um, it's something like we would go to. But each of these it has pros and cons. Like it depends on your build time, what you want in your application, whether you need good build time or let's say you want to focus on SEO. In that case you will go with SSG. And if suppose there's an application which the user is not saying, only the some users wants to see, so that time you can use SSR. So it all depends upon certain criteria, like which application needs what. So I'll be talking about which methods we use in Next.js in order to achieve this as well. So, and the last is ISR, which is incremental update. Here you can define a time in seconds, like when you want to refresh the data to be refreshed every time. So this is one common example of ISR is like I would say the stock prices. So if you see in stock prices, it increases every time. So at every second, the stock prices increase. So in that case, we can imagine like we can use ISR. So I'll show a demo as well, like how this works and in applications. So this is just a basic flow, like we can say, like how CSR does, like the client side scripting. So the request is sent from the DOM, and there's no pre-processing happening in the server in between. So at the build time or runtime. So whenever you refresh the data, the whole page would be painted in itself, rather than the data will be fetched in itself. So whenever a request is made, the whole page will refresh. So that's CSR. SSR is like basically you have a HTML and JSON in your server side, and that would be sent to your browser. So it's comparatively more SEO friendly because your content is already there on server side, and the data in whole is not presented to the browser. And this is the server side generation. So here we have CDN. So let's say there's a request which is going, so it will be passed to the server, and then during the build time itself, the page will be rendered. So I'll show you an example representing how it exactly it works. Okay, so here is a simple. So I am creating a blog. So it's returning a simple blog page. So this is a simple example of CSR. So if you replace this with your fetch function, or if you're using Axios, you can use that. You are fetch the data, then you can send directly. So this is a simple case which we use in React, where we are just returning the data in itself. We are doing nothing much fancier here. Just we are returning the data, whatever we have, from either by fetching from API or just a static content. So in server-side rendering, we have a function named get server-side props. So this function, when we use it in our Next.js app, it recognizes like, yeah, this data needs to be sent on server. And Next.js, by default, it recognizes this function. And then accordingly, we do the processing. And in ISR, okay, we'll talk about SSG. So in SSG, if we want to go with, we use a function which is get static props, where we pass the data, and revalidate is something which is incremental server-side regeneration, where we tell like okay, we need to refresh the data in 10 seconds, or this is seconds, in seconds we tell. And we need to we need this data from this particular API, and we need to reevaluate after every 10 seconds. So as I said previously, if we want stock or stock data which is continuously changing, so in that case we can use this, where the data will be refreshed every time. The JSON refreshes every time. So so that's the basic example of ISR. So this is the overall flow which I made, like to understand basically how we are using. So server-side scripting let's say we have Drupal, we have Next.js and Pro. So all of our processing comes in this Next.js, and then this Next.js uh, is a middleware, I would say, between Drupal and your browser, and all the processing goes from Next to the Chrome. So this is just a basic frame I have created so that to explain like how the flow exactly is with Drupal. So okay, so now we like any doubts still here?
Should be okay.
Okay. Okay. So now we understood why Next.js is used, like those four concepts which are there, which are fundamental to the using Next.js. So how do we proceed with the installation purpose? So there are a couple of easy installation process where you can easily connect your Next.js with Drupal. So I'll be doing. I'll be explaining first, like basic setup how it would be. So first, you need to have your Drupal instance in Drupal 10 or 11, either using either of those CLI. And then there's a module, JSON API module, which you can install in Drupal, which is also part of core right now. So just need, so there's nothing to do much in that. And then we need to install a boilerplate for Next.js, which I'll be explaining on the next slide what we need to do. And then we need to update our environment variables as required. So environment variables will have the URL of the Drupal site and the image from where the Drupal images should be rendered. So I'll be showing that in the example, like how we set that. So there are two ways right now to use integrate your Next with Drupal. So one is in Pantheon, and second is Chapter 3. Chapter 3 has a very good documentation, and I learned many things from this link, like how we can proceed with, how we can start with learning Next.js with Drupal, and how we can integrate the parts. So I'll be demoing that, like how we can do in the next slide. So okay, before that, I forgot. I had created a simple example of server-side generation. I'll show that, and then we'll go with the Drupal installation. So I created a few cards here. So first, I'll show this CSR. So how? So here we can see the whole of the page is painted at the instance. So if we inspect here,
Sure.
okay. So let me see the request. So we have this response which came from the CSR, and if we preview the page, initially there's nothing. So it displays whole of the page at the instance. So there is nothing to preview. So this means that the whole HTML is painted, and the data is not itself there in that. So it's everything is painted in. So if you are changing one card, whole of the page will be repainted, which is not good for performance. Like if you're having a big application, in that case, this method would be insufficient for performance related cases. So let's check this. Okay, so here I'll just okay. So if we see in this preview, we have this whole data which is rendered before. So if you see, if I refresh this page, uh, yeah. So here, if you see, we have the data rendered in itself. It has the data in itself. So if we are just updating one of the assets over here, let's say we are updating this image, it won't repaint all of the other content in the page. So that's the benefit of SSG. So and same goes with SSR. Both would be same. The data would be present at the initial stage itself. Like the data would be present, and then just the things which you need to update, it will be updated rather than updating whole of the page. So that's the beauty of this. Just one difference which is there in SSR and SSG is it's a runtime. On SSR works at runtime, and SSG works in build time, during build time. So that's the only difference which you have in SSR and SSG. But again, as I said, it depends on the usage of how your application you want your application to be. So let's say in group, let's say we have WordPress site. We want the data to be fetched in another application. So in that case, we'll use SSG because the data wouldn't be that random. It would be a static content. It won't change every time. So in that case, we'll use SSG or SSR. Likewise, it depends on how you want your application to be. Next, I'll be showcasing. Yeah. So, okay. Before that, yeah. So as I was saying, in CSR, we are just rendering the data. We're just mapping. We are iterating the data, and we are sending the data itself. We are doing nothing in this case. In case of ISR, we are using revalidate here, where you're saying that you are having your API URL, which is your API which you want to fetch, and then we are saying that we need to revalidate it after 100 seconds. So this is and it uses get static props, which is same as we use it over here in SSG. It's the same, just one difference in ISR and SSG is we are using this revalidate just to increment, to check for changes after 100 seconds. So this change you won't notice in your local application, but when you're hosting it in your server, let's say you're having a Panther server where you're hosting this your application, that time you will come to know like why this is like useful. So I had one instance which I came upon where we had images on the server, and the images weren't getting updated from the Drupal side, and we were not confused like why it was happening. So then we added this revalidate, and then we checked on a server. So then the images were getting changed. So there's something the Panther server itself, like you can the images are cached. So that's one issue, like the images are cached in Panther server. So so after doing this fix, we got the images updated. So it depends on the scenario basis as well. You won't every time use this, but there would be instances where you will come to know. So okay, so let me open my okay, just created a basic application, Next.js app, and we are having Drupal content over here, which I created. So I have GitHub links for this. I'll be sharing this at the end of the meetup so that you guys can try it if you have not tried before. So yeah, so we are having this content which I already created over here. We are having this 3 content, which has 3 fields: title, image, and body. So if I just go to the content type, you're having this article content type with these 3 fields: body, field, image, tags. So so let me okay. So let me start with the pages which I have in our server. So we are using this node article teaser here. And node article. Yeah. So we are having this node article component, which we are calling from the components folder. So here we are having this article file where our actual div is content. So here we are having this card which we can see it's coming from this component, and we are passing the data to button as well with the some of the attributes like background color, size, and the label. So this is basically our React, like how we do in React is the same. We are creating component, we are passing the data, and then we are passing the data as a prop types. We are initializing it like what type it would be, and then we are having our index page. Okay, we're having an index page where we are initializing. So this is the function which we are using in to get the data from the Drupal, and we are mentioning that hey, I want this fields to be rendered in my Next.js app, and we initialize that. So right now I'm rendering the title, field image, and custom image. So for some reason the image is not working. It was working before. I have to check why it's not working. But yeah, yeah. So the image is not working for some reason, but the data which is there, like title, the image, and the CT link that I have mentioned over here. So let me create a content and show you. The images are not working for some reason. I have to. I think it's the new update in Next.js because of which it's not happening. I'll check that. I just created this Sunflower blog. Let me refresh this. Yeah, so we have this Sunflower blog with title, image, and the CT link in it. So all the magic happens here, where we are passing this node, and then we are passing those node to our particular component where we need that, and we are mapping those content over here. And let me show you the place where you are mapping that. So here we are checking like if it's a node article, then we need to pass the data to the node article component, which is over here. So inside component we have article, node article. So we are passing the data over there. So it would like look complicated, but it's all like even when I started, it was confusing for me. But then as I like, learned, and then I got to know like yeah, that's how the mapping happens. So so a couple of things to notice how we are using getting the data. So that's the main part in Next.js. Once we get that, then passing the data to the components, that would be not much of a deal. So here you can see I'm passing the node image, field image. So this is not working for some reason, which I have to check why it's not working. I had passed the data, but it's not rendering. Yeah. So this is this, and yeah. So now we just looked at the glimpse, like how we are integrating Next.js with Drupal, and how what all things we need to uh, look through it, like how we can integrate the data Next.js, and how we can send the data basically from Drupal to Next. So, so any doubts still here?
Could you go into like exactly how you're exposing the data so that Next.js can see it
Okay.
within Drupal?
In Drupal.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. There is a link. Just 1 second. We have this.
Okay, so it's just using the raw JSON output.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we are using this to serialize it, and then we are passing the data.
Okay.
So,
And what's the exact endpoint that you're hitting for on JSON API?
yeah, just checking that.
If you go back to the actual Next.js code that you have, it should probably be in there, right?
Yeah.
It should have the endpoint there.
And it is. Yeah. It is. Um. So we are having this data, and
Yeah, so it's basically that request that was being made there.
yeah,
Okay.
in index. Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, I see it. So it's just asking for node type of article and then all those fields and then
Yeah.
okay. That
So
makes
this
sense.
is that some parts like which we get confused, like why, how we are doing it. So this is one function which is used, and we are waiting for the call here, and we are passing
Okay,
it.
and just to brief, like I know you went through a few of these files, but how does Next.js where does it start from? Like how does it start and then execute everything? Like what's the entry point for Next.js?
You mean entry point two?
Yeah, so basically when we were calling a particular page, like what's the order of execution to get to that page?
Okay. So I think I had showed that page. Let me
Yeah,
check.
so you
So,
showed, but like,
yeah.
how does it know to get to that
Yeah.
particular file?
So here, if you see,
Yeah.
we're having this resources node page.
So where's the routing file for Next.js? Is there a routing file?
Yeah. So, here we are mapping it. Where is it? Yeah, it is there. And this is the people we are using Drupal validate.
Okay, it's okay. We can talk about that afterward. You can continue as well.
Yeah. So the main part which I did is like creating the component and then mapping the data. So directly into the node
Okay.
part, node article. So yeah. So there are some parts which might be there, which even I might have to explore, but I know like where we need to add the component and send the data. So yeah, did that. Um, so next we'll talk about Storybook integration in Next.js. So, so what is everyone aware about Storybook here? Have used in your applications before?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Okay. So Storybook is basically so let's say as a front end developer, he gets a design from a design from a designer. He has a Figma design or everything. He has it. So those components. So how those components would be looking like. So in order to map that, we use Storybook. So it's just like a design guide, I would say, which we can present to a client. Let's say the client wants to know how we are using this card and which type of menu we are using. So we can have that style guide generated for client to see okay, so this is how the card is made, from where it's rendering. So it's similar to Pattern Lab. Pattern Lab also is also used in some cases, but Storybook has some more extension, like it can be used in React, Next.js, and other apps. So I have framed something when like as a quote, like it's a component-driven libraries which gives us more flexibility to implement Drupal theming or decouple theming at a more granular level. So with granular level, I mean, let's say we have atoms, molecules, and organisms in Pattern Lab. Uh, so it's like atom is your basic component, which is your button, and that button is used in your card. Card is a molecule, and that card, we have a component like a slider. Let's say we have a slider, so that's an organism. So all those minor component, it can be integrated to a full fledged component. So that is like Storybook. Like we can use it as we can view it as at a granular level, like what type of text we are used, what color we have used, and what type of buttons we have used, like that. So yeah. So this is the basic flow which I created, like as my mind process, like how at what level Storybook is served. So let's say in Drupal we have Twig, which is used in Drupal itself, and we have some decoupled applications like React, Angular, and Vue, and then we are using Bootstrap or Sass or Tailwind to theme that particular component or page, and then we show it to Chrome. So Storybook comes in between that, where the theming part goes to Storybook, and all the where this I would say the skeleton part of the component would be there in Storybook, and then Storybook data would be rendered in Storybook would be rendered in your component. So how that I'll explain in the next slide. How we can do that. So, and some of the advantages of Storybook is like it's a component library, and it allows for front-end developers for rapid prototyping. So rapid prototyping is showing the clients like this is how your component would look like, this is how your menu will look like, this is how it will look in mobile, and additional likewise. So let's say we have backend developer and front-end developer in a team, and let's say the backend part is not done yet, but the front-end developer is sitting idle. In that case, he can start creating components in Storybook, and as and when the data is ready, he can integrate that Storybook into your Twig or into your decoupled application. So that's one advantage of Storybook. And another is like it gives the content editors planning, like how the landing page would look like and what all variations would be there for a particular component. With variations, I mean, let's say there's one card which would have couple of variations. Like one card would have image, and second another variation would have a CTA button in it. Third would be let's say that card is rounded shape. So that's a third variant. Likewise, so we can create different variants of a particular card or particular component. So that we can showcase to the client, like these are the variations which are used in our application. So that way. And Storybook can, as I said, it can be integrated with the templates, and it is an example of markup, like and it can be integrated in any of the CMSs or any of the decoupled applications. So that's the advantage of Storybook. Let me quickly show you how I have integrated the Storybook. So here we are having I installed the Storybook. So I'll share the link like how I did that over here. So it's basically a simple way to integrate to add Storybook into your Next.js application. So I followed this and I use that in our Next.js app. So here we are. So the data here in Next.js. So this data, this I would say the content HTML content is coming from the storybook part. So so this card you can see. So this same card is being rendered from. So this card which we have generated. So this is the our article component where we are passing card data in it, and this data is we are showing it in the Next.js application. So like I said, like if suppose a developer is sitting idle and he has the designs but he can't work on it because the backend stuff is not yet ready, so he can go ahead and create his stories. With stories I mean this part. So here we are having this. This is the dummy data which you're passing, and this data would be actually replaced by your Drupal like content or your and the data which is coming from JSON. So here I am just passing the title, image, and button text, which is my molecule, my card molecule. So here I just pass the card data. If I just refresh it, um, so here the my card is created. So this card can be used as a page. So this is my organism, I can say, where we are integrating that molecule into my big component, which is main component. So likewise, so here we can add our. So this is the div which we are entering in our main page over here, index.tsx, where it's calling this particular article component, and we can theme it on that level itself. So here we are using Tailwind for theming. So yeah, so this was the main part which I wanted to cover in part of this integration. And so there are some links which I have created like for the Next.js and also the Drupal content as well. So if you clone it directly and just I have added the steps in that GitHub, and if you follow that, then you'll be able to utilize the Next.js integration with Drupal. So I'll share this link over the chat, and you guys can take a look at it. And if there's any doubt or something, you can reach out to me if there's something you want to talk or discuss. Yeah, so this was a short presentation from my side on Next.js with Drupal and Storybook.
Hey, thank you so much.
Hope you guys had some insight on how we can work. Yeah.
For sure. I had a question about Next.js.
Yeah.
What do you call it? So, I prior to today,
Mhm.
I didn't really know much about Next.js to begin with.
Mhm. Mhm.
Uh, so Next.js being an open source JS
Right.
framework, do you know any one who's actually using it at the moment, or is it
So,
like I what the exact like how long it's been in development, what exactly it's is, how versatile is it? How does it compare to React or Angular or
as I said, like two most like those components, the features which I said in Next.js, like SSG and SSR. So those
yeah,
functions I had shared. So those comes in handy, like having your page not refreshed. So in React, if you use React with your Drupal application, you will face the issue with SEO part and continuous like data. If you want one data to be rendered, then the whole page would be refreshed. So it has some performance issues. So in that place, Next.js comes into picture, where we can use that those function which is get server props and get server side props, and the data, all of the page data is like set in your server, and it won't. So I think I'll show it again. So here, if you see, if I refresh here, so here as I showed, we are having the pre-filled content, and if we check the CSR, we don't have any content which is there, which is painted. It directly paints. It directly comes from the server. So in performance wise, I would say Next.js is like I have used in a couple of applications. So were you asking about any Drupal agency which is using Next.js?
Yeah,
Yeah,
or any other major agency besides Drupal.
yeah. So the one which I had worked, which is Digital Polygon, if you know. So over there, the website is made in Next.js. So I used to work on that.
Okay.
It's I can share the link if you want. So that entire site we had, which is using Pantheon, and it's for hosting, and then Drupal. So we are sending data from Drupal.
Okay. Cool. Does anyone else have questions, comments? Don't be shy.
I think there's a comment there I was just checking.
I'm just curious about when it comes to loading some of the components. It sounds a lot like I haven't used Next.js before, but it sounds a lot like you can refresh a component loaded from Next.js into Drupal. Is that correct? Or
You mean
kind of like
the data from Drupal into Next.js, right? Or using
right?
JSON API? Yeah. So it depends on the application, like which what type of application you're serving. So let's say it's your basic website, or let's say it's an application. In that case, we'll use a different approach. It depends on your approach, like what you want.
Okay, that makes sense. One thing that's like, for example, that we have this. I was wondering if this also could be vice versa, that you can just do a call from basically like if you make some sort of a module that calls server for SJS, then Next.js, and after that returns the precompiled components, and then after that display them as a single development component. Would that be possible, or is something that still is not you haven't tried?
You mean I didn't get you. You mean creating the modules in Drupal and then
Basically just to a call for a precompiled component from Next.js to Drupal.
I think I have not tried that out. I think it's possible. It's possible with Next.js.
Okay. So storybooks, which basically provides patterns, right, for
Yeah.
Next.js.
Yeah.
So that just lives on the front end. So basically, anytime you're serving up components from any sort of content from Drupal, that whole is using it's using storybooks to basically get the pattern
Right.
and build out the markup.
Yeah, I can show you one example which I had done maybe. So we had this component which I had created. So we had just started on that previously when I used to work, and I just integrated one button over here. We have this button. If you see this button, learn more. Okay. So where we are using this button is on all of our pages. So this button, if you see, learn how. This is coming from the storybook. So you have the data, you have your skeleton ready in your storybook, and that skeleton is used as per the data would be dynamic, and that skeleton will be used in Drupal and any application. So this was WordPress, and likewise. So if I show you So we are having this storybook. This 24. We are using this over here. This anchor tag. We had just started at that time, and then here, if you see that button, we are entering that button. So likewise, if you want to create a menu, we can do that as well, and then we can integrate that menu as well over here in any CMS, not just Drupal. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. Yeah, I was just going through the history of Next.js a little bit. So it started way back in 2015.
Yeah.
And has
Almost
been steadily growing. So on, I think, version 9 or something now.
13, I think, not 9.
What?
Next
Is
is
there
the version. 13 or 14. 14, sorry. 14 version.
14? Yeah, sorry. Okay, yeah. And
14.
version 9 came out in 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it looks like there's a bunch of companies that are actually supporting this, but the main company behind it is a company called Vercel.
Yeah, Vercel is that's the
Yeah.
Next.js. On top
Okay.
of Node.js and React. So it uses both Node.js and React things.
I see.
It's pretty cool stuff if you have if you want to build your
Yeah,
application.
I mean the different methods of rendering are interesting.
Yeah. In Drupal, if you see, you just need to add JSON API module. It should be in core, and then if you expose the data on Next.js, then yeah, you're good to go. You can experiment. Like you can create different content types. You need to just map those content types in your Next.js and then render that data.
Okay.
Pretty cool stuff.
Does anyone else have questions, comments?
In some of your early examples there, where you have like the HTML to render the thing, you've got a chunk of code to pre-process the data, pre-process the data, and then you've got a third chunk to pull the data out of Drupal. Like as someone who's done mostly just Drupal my whole career, like that just feels a little bit wrong to have all those three things mashed together. Like it feels like pulling the data from the system should be separate from the business logic that pre-processes the data, should be separate from how the presentation of the content is.
So,
am I wrong to think about it that way, or am I missing something?
So here, for a demo purpose, what I've done is like I had created this components, which is the my, I would say, skeleton in this case. Okay, and we are having this pages where the actual processing, where we are sending the data. So let's say we have this index.tsx. Okay, so here we are saying, okay, do the mapping, check all the fields, and here we are having this this case, and then here we are saying, okay, so map each of those components. So we are having this node basic page, node article. We are saying, okay, go to components and map it with the node article. Send the data to node article if it's a node page type. So that's how I distinguish like pages separate and my components separate. So here is your. So maybe we can more categorize it. Like let's say these three files, we can categorize it somewhere in a module so that it could be more readable. So this is actually your storybook also comes inside this. So this stories also comes inside this, and this is your file where we say we want. This is just like a Gulf file or yarn file where we say we want this. Oh, did I? Was I?
So are you saying that it doesn't have to all be smushed together? You can have the markup more separate from, say, the business logic?
So yeah, that I think yes. So here I'm having my, let's say, HTML components. Here I'm seeing my actual logic, like from where the data is rendering and where to send it. So maybe we
Yeah,
can.
yeah, it looks like you can definitely break up the
Yeah.
parts. I haven't. I'm just looking at another site. Sorry, I'm going to just hijack the sharing of the site, of the screen, and just show off. I found a Next.js example
Mhm.
thing here. So this one, there's a module in GitHub, Vercel's Next.js module, right? So in here they have examples, and inside that there's a route thing, which I guess you can use. So they basically have interfaces for various things. It's just a what do you call it? Types that they've defined inside the interface, which is fine. Then they have basically user, which is the actual page. This is actually rendering out the various items. They're also importing the what do you call a user from the interfaces. So they're getting that data object. They're getting the use router from the next router, which is coming from Next.js. And so they're doing a query to use router. And that's something assuming it's coming from somewhere that it knows that to grab it from the API. Right.
So we can basically we can create more like the one which you saw in the pages. We have API, and inside that we have a logic. So similarly, that's what I have done. Like I have created components where I am using that article component. I have my CSS file, my JSX file, and the story file. And in pages, I have my index.tsx where I'm saying, okay, for Storybook, show this page, and for your main page, show the other page. So yeah, that's how I categorize. We can maybe do it more.
Yeah, so I've shared the link to this as well in the chat. But it looks like there's examples of basically how to break it all up apart. So
I can also share some of the links which I had used. Um, it would be helpful for everyone.
okay.
They should be so you guys can
Yeah.
we follow documentation, then we can start learning about it.
Yeah.
Cool.